Hello printmakers, I'm going to show you another book. Today you will need 2 sheets of paper, glue, and scissors. I'm going to set those aside for now. The first thing that we're going to do is to cut each of these sheets of paper into a square, and the easiest way to do that is to take one of the corners and line up the edge perfectly to create a triangle, and then we are going to cut off this extra sheet of paper. This will determine and make a perfect square for this book style. This is a flip book that we're making that will actually flip around itself. Notice this is a perfect square. And we'll do that again with our second sheet of paper. Crease, always remember to crease with a nice sharp crease, and then cut off the remainder of the paper. From here, you will have 2 identical squares that we are going to cut down a little bit more. From here, we're going to fold it in half. Again, aiming for being as exact as possible with no overhang of your paper. It should line up perfectly so that each of our cuts can also be measured and perfect. So I now have a seam down both of those centers. From here, I'm going to cut it right down the center, and I will end up with 4 sheets of paper in the end of this process. So set those aside and then cut your second sheet of paper. Your papers can be the same color. I'm only showing you paper that is 2-tone so that you can see some of the difference in what I'm doing. So I now have 2 and 2. From here, you're going to fold each of these long ways, again lining up your edges and your corners, making it very exact. Fold it into a hamburger fold, always creasing every time, very exact, and then into the center and into the center again. You will end up with 8 squares total. You can ignore the diagonal. I'm going to do that on all 4 sheets of paper. And then my hamburger fold, and then into the center. So you can be doing this along with me. You will end up with 4 identical sheets of paper with 8 exact squares on each one. This type of book I actually found in a magazine when I was in college. It was a car ad, and as you'll see, it's going to transform, and the car advertisement actually transformed into a truck and then into an SUV by the end of the car advertisement. It was a pretty cool thing. So I took it out of a magazine and I discovered how they had made this little cool foldable flip book, which you will see by the end of this process. So as you can see, I've got all 4 sheets of paper, identical folding on all 4 with 8 squares available on each of them. At this time, I'm going to lay 2 sheets down this way and then 2 sheets this way. So I have them with the seam here and the seam here. I'm going to flip these over just to let them lay a little flatter. At this time, you can grab your glue, and you are going to glue only the top corner of this paper, right like that. And then I'm going to glue only the top square or the top corner, making sure I'm getting my glue to the very ends. From this point, I'm going to fold this in half. I'm going to fold it towards myself so the opening's this way, and I'm going to make sure that my papers are lined up exactly so that I can lay down this part without it touching the glue right on those 4 squares, making sure it's very, very exact. That's really important before I push down my paper onto those 4 corners. And if it's a little off, the nice thing about glue sticks is you can always slide it a little bit. See that? I was able to kind of make that happen. I'm going to do the exact same thing again. Notice my flap here can flip up. I'm going to glue these 4 total corners are glued. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's only the top corners, and I'm making sure I'm putting enough glue on there. And do the same thing again. Fold, have the opening towards myself, making sure that the papers are very lined up, exact, laying those 4 squares down on those 4, and flapping it down. Wow. So now I have this side and this side. Notice this is a vertical and this is a horizontal. At this point, you can determine which is the front of your book. It doesn't matter. But I want the front to have the seam going vertical towards your stomach. I'm going to use a Sharpie, but you may want to just do this in pencil. And the Sharpie is going to designate which page is which. So this is page 1, and that's really important to understand before you start to design or put pictures or drawings in your book, because everything that's on this face of the book is page 1. Now I'm going to flip the book. When I flip the book, I open the doors, but I also flip these flaps behind, and I will press down on all of those seams to make sure that they're nice and sharp. Notice again, it's a hinge, those flip behind. And now this is page 2. And you're seeing that I have the two-tone color. That's just to show you the difference in how the papers come together. So now this is a very cool step. This is going to form into a plus sign. Once again, I'm flipping these flaps behind and then these flaps as well. Notice these 2s remain. So page 2 is also visible on page 3. So I'm actually going to do a slash so that you can see that those squares are actually visible on both pages. And this is the plus sign. The plus sign is always page 3. From here, I'm going to once again flip those flaps behind. I'm always hinging those behind. This is incorrect. Just to fold it that way, you have to flip that behind. This has to flip behind, so you have to lift it up and flip it. Now I'm at page 4, which is the back of the book. And you might think to yourself, if I just flipped it upside down, would page 1 be there? And I will show you what you can see. Nope. Page 2 and 3 are there. So in order to get to page 1 again, you have to flip again. Notice I'm hinging the book like so. So let's do our folding one more time. Page 1, page 2 with our 2 3s. Now I'm going to pull from the inside these little flaps. This becomes page 3, the plus sign, and then page 4. Once again, to get to page 1, you have to open that door and go to page 1. Very cool book. This is called your flip book.